Hey everyone, my name is Hugh Sweeney, and just the other day as I was loading my camera bag on the way to do a job, a film job, as you do, and I was putting in my go-to lens, the Sigma 18-35, and I realized that it was exactly 5 years, literally to the day, since I purchased this lens. The Sigma 18-35 1.8 DC for crop sensor cameras. A lot has changed in those 5 years. At the time when I picked up this lens, I wasn't doing videos at all, and I was very eager to get into video, mostly to sort of shoot my own films and my own short movies and stuff. So in this video here, I will tell you exactly my thoughts on this lens, how I experienced the lens, and the pros and cons, of course, of the now almost famous Sigma 18-35. When Sigma designed and manufactured this lens, they pretty much hit the ball right out of the park. It was a first of a kind, an f1.8 zoom lens which hadn't been available at the time. And even today, 5 years later, I don't think there's any lenses that are that bright in terms of aperture. So yes, it was very, very highly anticipated by photographers and videographers at the time. And what Sigma tried to do with this lens was they sort of tried to give the people who had crop sensor cameras that same look that the full frame people would have, of course, with their 2.8 aperture lenses. People were very excited, of course, about the fast aperture, but also about the sharpness of this lens. This lens could deliver very good sharp results. And a lot of people at the time were saying that it sort of almost replaced a set of prime lenses, like an 18, 28 and a 35, of course. Not the best bokeh you'll ever see, but good bokeh for a relatively wide lens, of course, that down to the f1.8 aperture. 18-35 is only 2x, literally 2 times zoom, which sounds rather bad, but when you actually look at it and compose the image, it actually punches in more than you think, 2x. And then, of course, if you're shooting in 4K, you know, and you're delivering in full HD, you're going to get a bigger output as well in terms of what you can do and punching in and out of your resolution there, so you have a little bit more power. Because it has a small zoom range, the zoom of the lens is all done internally and the front element doesn't shift. That means that the lens will stay balanced so and can be used on a Ronin and stuff like that without needing to, we'll say, lock up the zoom. It also won't suck in and out dust and moisture as the zoom goes in and out, of course, so it's all internal. That's pretty cool. 18-35, it's not that flexible. Consider the crop sensor, it is sort of a 28 to something like a 56 or something like that, thereabouts. At the time, of course, it was a new step up for Sigma because they had a different design, a slightly more old school design to their lenses. Visually, their lenses weren't that much to look at, even though they were quite good, affordable lenses. So this new one, featuring the silver art badge, was a real step up for Sigma. The lens is very simple. It literally only has one switch: autofocus, manual focus. It's got a 72mm thread on the front, of course, which is a nice size. You can get filters for that quite affordably. Now, I wouldn't consider it to be a heavy lens if you're used to sort of bigger lenses. And if I was to compare it to this lens, which is its sort of bigger brother, the 50-100, after using the 50-100 for a while, and you go back to using the 18-35, trust me, the 18-35 will feel very light. For me, I don't shoot with rigged cameras really. I like to keep it very light, and I've used this lens on the GH5 a lot lately, handheld, because of the image stabilization in the GH5, and I've used it both with and without the Atomos Ninja. And I found it to be actually not that heavy, to be honest with you, especially if you don't have a rig on your camera. I use the lens a lot on this camera right here, which is the Blackmagic cinema camera. Now, the Blackmagic cinema camera has a famously bad crop ratio of about 2.3. So the 18-35 became like a mid-range lens, good for interviews and sort of mid-range shots, you know, dialogue shots between people. It was terrible for doing any kind of wide shots. So I ended up getting the Tokina Cine lens, which is on the Ronin here. There are focusing issues with this lens. With photography, it does tend to sort of front and back focus a little bit. Some shots are misfocused with this lens, and you got to be careful that you're not misfiring too many shots. If you are investing in one of these lenses, it might be no harm to get yourself the calibrating dock, the Sigma calibrating dock. Autofocus with video is really only a new thing. So manually, I was always manually focusing with this lens, and it was absolutely brilliant for focusing because it was very smooth, of course. The ring was very smooth, and it had a nice focus throw as well. I used to have this lens set up a lot on my Blackmagic production camera with, of course, a focus puller as well on that, and I used to get great accurate focus results. It'll let you go right up to things very close. You can shoot very close to subjects with this lens. It's got a very small minimum focus distance. It's parafocal as far as I'm concerned, meaning that if you zoom in and out, the focus will stay locked. The focus breathing is barely noticeable on this lens. You will notice focus breathing more evidently with autofocus. I mean, if you put this 50 to 100 on the Canon 80D, which is deadly focused, you will see it just constantly jumping in and out, and it's a major issue. No image stabilization in this lens. Again, it's not a huge issue now with the new cameras, most of them coming out with image stabilization. And of course, you have devices like the Ronin gimbal here as well. Now with photography image stabilization, the lack of with a wider lens like this isn't such a big deal. If you're using a zoom lens, image stabilization is more important because the more of a zoom you have on the lens, the more liable you are going to get blurring from camera movement. So many people that bought GH5s also paired them up with this and the speed booster, and when I got my GH5 I got the 0.64x XL speed booster as opposed to the Ultra, simply because it came at half price with the camera. Possibly not the best idea. The 0.71 crop would have been better for this lens. Sometimes when I have this on the GH5 I can see the edges of the lens, which is not good. I have to crop in or I have to zoom in a little bit, but when you use image stabilization you really evidently see it, so you got to be careful there. If you're using this on a GH5, get yourself the Metabones 0.71 Ultra as opposed to the XL. I made that mistake. Not the end of the world, I can still use it. And of course, when you mount this on a GH5 with the speed booster, you're reducing the f1.8 aperture right down again to like f1.1, f1.2. So you're getting a very bright lens, and it's a great combination with the GH5 in terms of low light. Modestly priced for the quality of the lens and what it can do. It's actually relatively inexpensive. Some of the other Sigma lenses are way more expensive than this. A couple of years ago it took a little bump and it actually damaged the focus, and that is one thing I gotta say about Sigma lenses. If they take a little bang at all, they're very liable to make the focus very, very stiff. So if you do get one of these lenses brand new, you gotta really be careful with it. Don't be fooled by that very heavy metal body. These lenses cannot take the bangs. Now, up until a couple of weeks ago, to be honest with you, this lens wasn't looking so good, and I was sort of in two minds, would I sell it or would I fix it? So I decided to replace the rubber section on the zoom ring and the rubber section here on the focus ring. Also, I changed the thread on the front here because that had got damaged. So the filter thread on the front is brand new, and these two things are brand new as well. If you weren't to know that it was 5 years old, you would probably say it was only 6 months old. It actually looks absolutely perfect. Would I recommend this lens? Of course I would, but it depends on your situation. If you're getting a brand new, for example, GH5, and you want a really light setup, then I probably wouldn't recommend this lens because it's quite heavy and you're gonna have to buy the Metabones, and you know, it's gonna cost you a bit more. But if you have a few Canon lenses already and you need to buy the adapter, I would say, yeah, go for it. Get this lens, get super wide aperture and beautiful, sharp picture results. It goes beautifully with the 50 to 100, both f1.8 aperture, and you're going from 18 right up to 100. Of course, you've got that little gap of 15 between 35 and 50, but this is a great lens too. It gives great results and it's very flexible. You mightn't think 50 to 100 is that flexible, but it actually is. So that is it for the Sigma 18 to 35. What a 5 years it's been. Do get this lens, check it out, and above all else, get out there shooting content that you enjoy shooting and producing videos. It's not the lens, it's the person behind the lens that counts. and always remember that. And thank you so much for watching this video. It would mean so much to me if you subscribed and came back here to watch more videos. Even better still, give me a thumbs up and feel free to comment in the videos below. I'm also on Facebook. You'll get me on there as Hugh Sweeney Filmmaker. You can go and find me there, and on Instagram as well. I'll put the links down below. And until next time, for myself, Hugh Sweeney, it's over and out for now, and see ya.